Hi, welcome. My name's Dr. Mike Bross. Today, I'm just going to be making a short video to do with interview tips. And I'm looking at it from the perspective of the person who's doing the interview and the person who is being interviewed. So the reason isn't just the laundry list of everything like be prepared, look through the job description, etc. I've come across quite a few people who are either nervous doing the interview or who are nervous being interviewed, both of which are very reasonable. Now, if you're the hiring manager and you come through the doors, you see a person there who is very nervous, and even if the person looks confident, you don't know what's happening behind the scenes, behind the facade of their face. You've got to obviously make sure that you greet them properly. You start even joking with them. You create an environment in which they're feeling welcome within your organization. It's not just a formal handshake and lead them down the corridor into a room and sit them down and give them a cup of tea and some biscuits. So one of the key things in that regard, as you're talking to them, you might be there in a suit, but it could also make them feel a little bit uncomfortable. It's not a bad idea in some companies and in some circumstances for you to actually dress down a little for the interview in terms of you the one doing the interview. In other words, if you're there in a suit and tie, maybe just take off your tie. Create a little bit of less of a formal atmosphere, less of an informal environment. It just, as I said, it helps take the edge off. So if they've got something that looks particularly of interest that they are carrying, you can make an inquiry about it. Obviously, make an inquiry how they do in the usual politeness. Sit down, get to know a little bit about the background, so you can take a couple of minutes to try and get to know them as a person. So you're also after a cultural fit within the organization. You're going to have your list of questions that you do. You're going to need to introduce them to the company and explain the company, but weave it so that you get an idea of who they are as a person. What are their fundamental guiding principles and ethics, both as a person and in professional life? Because the two do tend to come together in that respect. I'm not saying ask what they'll do in their personal life with girlfriends, wives, etc., but get an idea of what guides them, what drives them as a person. And bearing in mind that the best teams are highly diverse teams. They've obviously got to fit in, and people have got to get along professionally with each other. But keep in mind, you're not after a yes person. Now, when you're sitting there on the other side of the table, you're the one who's actually been interviewed. One, you've got to have done all your preparation. So if you're in the UK and you're going into a private company or even a charity, take a look at Companies House. Get an idea of the financials, get an idea of the business, do your research on the particular people. Fine. Most of that is, in my view, that's common sense and that's what you need to do. Now, you let's say you're in a position where you're unemployed and you desperately need a paycheck, and you're so nervous that if you don't get this particular job, you don't know what else is on the horizon. Yeah, let your body feel those emotions. Perfectly valid. I've been there. There was a point in transitioning between jobs where I was 3 months away from being homeless because I didn't have more than that in the bank account. But then I landed a very good role at the Institute of Government after my previous role was outsourced. These things happen. Again, allow yourself to feel those emotions. Obviously, dress correctly. So once you've researched the company, you can understand how to turn up. Ideally, turn up in a suit, tie. If you're on video, if you're having a remote interview session, try and find out what type of appearance you need to give. So if the company is a company where nobody wears any kind of ties, put on a collared shirt. Don't have to wear a tie. If it's a more formal environment, put on a tie, appear as such. What I also find works a lot is, yes, you can't guess the types of questions. You're never going to get, there's always going to be a curveball. But what you need to do is you need to know your CV inside out. You need to know how to apply your CV in various scenarios. So get an A4 book, get a few scraps of A4 sheets of paper, write down different scenarios and different scenario questions, and then write down your answers to them. The point isn't to memorize in rote. The point is to familiarize your brain with being able to apply your knowledge in certain types of scenarios, in which case you'll be able to relate it to other scenarios. You'll be able to think quicker on your feet as you work through all of this. And also that has the correlate, as long as you're specific enough, explicit enough, you can link what you are saying to the types of words that you used in your CV. You can effectively bring your CV to life. Now, if anyone else has any suggestions or you want to ask me any questions, feel free to drop me a line on LinkedIn as usual. So, or drop me a line here in the YouTube chat comments and I'll get back to you. So thank you. And as it's Friday when I'm recording this and we'll distribute it out, I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. Thank you.